Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Peace, mercy, and blessings of God be upon you. Welcome back to the Goal of the Wise Show. And I'm your host, Ardian Al-Mahdi.
I'm Hussam Al-Mahdi.
And I'm Jamil Al-Mahdi.
So we talked about in the previous episode a big introduction on the celestial bodies, which is door number 8 of the Goal of the Wise. If you guys want to catch up with us and read along with us and tag along with us, check out the QR code which will pop up on the screen for the Goal of the Wise. Hopefully we can pull it up on the screen. And if not, you can find the Goal of the Wise on our website, theahmadireligion.org, where you're able to then download the book. Now that we have the QR code on the screen, you're able to scan it and download the book. The book is available in English and Arabic and German and Spanish and French and many other languages on our site, and many more to come. We also have the manifesto, the Al-Hafta Sharif, and hopefully many more publications coming in the future. So I guess without saying anything else besides promotion of our website and the book itself, let's get into the book. Let's get into the Goal of the Wise, and let's talk about the aspects of the celestial bodies as we talked about last time. So if we go back to now door number 8 of the Goal of the Wise, we went over the Gospel of Judas. We talked about how in the Gospel of Judas there is this teaching of how the celestial bodies have an effect on our choices and our behavior patterns, and how even the stars or the celestial bodies have an effect on the belief of Judas Iscariot, that the star of Judas led Judas Iscariot astray. But this calculation of the knowledge of the stars, unfortunately, is something that has been lost and sometimes is earned back in the time of their respected prophets and messengers that come revealing the true knowledge of God. Now, if we pull up the next hadith.
Muhammad ibn Ghanim narrated that he said to Abi Abdullah, peace be upon him, we have a people who say that stars are more true than visions. So he, peace be upon him, said, this was true before the sun returned for Joshua, son of Nun, and Ali, the prince of the believers. So when God returned the sun, astrologers have become confused. Some of them get it right, others get it wrong.
So that's actually pretty interesting how the knowledge of the stars is now only contained with the Ahlul Bayt, and we as of right now do not have knowledge except for what they say.
Exactly, and there's a prophet which we mentioned at the end of the episode yesterday, Prophet Enoch, which we actually know is Ahlul Bayt now. He's the soul which, one of the souls, the incarnations that, beside the rise of the family of Muhammad, came in the form of, and in my opinion, one of the greatest prophets that lived. He taught humanity many things that have to go on like a night journey similar to Prophet Muhammad's, in which he traversed the heavens and learned everything from the angels, then came back down and taught mankind a whole slew of different knowledges and informations. And I just got an excerpt from the Book of Enoch that I want to just go through quickly, which he's actually speaking about black holes. He's like the grandfather of Noah. So to be speaking about concept of black holes, something that we've only really just come into contact with in like the 20th century, is kind of mind-blowing actually.
Exactly.
So let's read this excerpt. We'll bring it up on the screen. There's a couple of slides, so we'll just do a little bit of reading along. And it says, it's the first slides, beyond these mountains is a region at the end of the great earth. There the heavens were completed, and I saw a deep abyss with columns of heavenly fire, and among them I saw columns of fire fall, which were beyond measure, alike towards the height and towards the depth. And beyond the abyss I saw a place which had no firmament of the heaven above and no firmly founded earth beneath it. So in this little part here, he's literally describing like a black hole. If we see a black hole today, they say it's like this big sort of disc with two jets coming out of it, right? And that's what he says. He says he sees two columns of fire fall, one like to the heights and towards the depths. And there's other verses in there also, but I'll continue. It says, And beyond the abyss I saw a place which had no firmament of the heaven above, and no firmly founded earth beneath it. There was no water upon it, no birds. There was a waste and a horrible place. I saw there 7 stars like great burning mountains, and to me, when I inquired regarding them, the angel he asked, which we know is Angel Uriel, he said, "This place is the end of heaven and earth. This has become a prison for the stars and the host of heaven. And the stars which roll over the fire are they which have transgressed the commandment of the Lord in the beginning of their rising, because they did not come forth at their appointed times, and he was wroth with them and bound them till the time when their guilt should be consummated, even for 10,000 years, so even if it lasted for 10,000 years. So what do we see from this verse? This verse from the Book of Enoch, we see exactly what we were speaking about yesterday in the Gospel of Judas, where basically Jesus says to Judas, like, your star has risen, your star has gone astray. And we see Enoch saying here that basically these stars, this group of stars, have actually disobeyed the commandment of the Lord and are being punished, even if it takes 10,000 years for them to realize their sin. And it wouldn't make sense for it just be speaking about like balls of like gases or rocks or something like how they describe planets as being these like mediocre sort of bodies. But when you think about it from what we revealed yesterday, that these are actually souls that belong to God, that had commandments that they disobeyed and now they're being punished, it paints a completely different picture. And again, with the description he speaks about, back then of the black hole, this is very clear that Enoch obviously is coming with knowledge that is way ahead of his time. It's something that he's obviously been taught from God, and this knowledge of the stars is a knowledge that belongs to the people of God, which is something that we keep mentioning, that these knowledges, they are true and they belong to the people of God, but throughout time it gets disrupted and distorted, which I think we're going to get into today. So I just wanted to bring that to the front, because we mentioned yesterday that Enoch is one of the ones, or the most one that came with this knowledge of astronomy and astrology and other sort of knowledges. So
yeah, for sure. And I think that's so fascinating, because now we cannot look at the universe and imagine just star dust. We imagine starlight. We imagine light. We imagine living beings that are filling the entirety of the galaxy. When you're looking right now, when you're looking into the stars, you're looking and seeing, okay, what do astronomers say? Like, what do the people who look into the stars say? There's a planet over there that's rotating at this speed, and it's made of this many gases, and it has this much gravity on its surface. It doesn't have this much gravity on its surface. The atmosphere is this. There is rings around it. How many rings? They talk about how many moons a planet has that's rotating around it. They talk about what is perceived with the physical eye, or at least with telescopes and stuff like that, with scopes. So that's what we're seeing. We're seeing only meets the eye. If, say, for example, something from up there starts looking at the planet Earth and looking at us, then they would see also just like things that are moving around, like just maybe tiny little dots that are moving around. If you're far enough, you don't have the sight to see, you would see us just like as dots maybe, or as something that's moving around, moving one spot to another spot, and you would think it's chemicals. You would think it's just like wind pushing something around, or you would try to figure out what's happening, but it would be a mystery to you. Where Abu Sadiq alayhi salatu wasalam came and clarified for us that, well, just because we don't see them in different light, if we had different eyesight, we'd be seeing the world as completely different. Give you an example. This is human goggles that we're using right now. Take it off and put it on the table for a while. We'll get back to it, no problem. We are humans in the end, so we're going to get back to the human goggle. But put instead a heat sensor goggle as your sensors for the world, as how you scan this world around you, and suddenly the human being will become a different creature. It would look like a fire. It would look like a fire floating on two maybe sticks, and then suddenly this fire, death becomes something different, life becomes something different. Life is this fire popping into existence, and then death becomes this fire turning off, and it becomes cold, So then your whole perception of reality changed just because your eyesight changed. How about then if we had different senses, where we can look at the stars and we see their different realms, or their auras, or their like another layer of their existence where they penetrate through different dimensions or frequencies. So that we're talking about something very deep here, right? Where Abu Sadiq alayhi salatu wasalam is saying all these planets are are bodies for believers, are bodies for believers who made it. You know, like if you make it through this life, you might become a star. You know, and so the idea is when we're talking about black holes and we're talking about the sun and the moon, as we said that in the last episode, the Quran mentions this. It says it very clearly. It says it in the surah of Joseph alayhi salatu wasalam, when it says that the sun and the moon and the planets, as you mentioned in the last episode, just to remind the people, that the sun and the moon and the planet mentioned in the Quran in the vision of Joseph were actually prophets and the prophet Jacob and his wife and the brothers of Joseph. So there is a strong correlation here between Quranic verses, biblical verses, plus all the ancient texts that we have right now. That if you can actually see a connection.
It all marries up, right?
Exactly. They're all kind of pointing towards the same truth. You know, that these stars are not just rocks. They are actually living beings.
Yeah, and it all points back to Enoch anyway. Like as Jamil was saying, you know, he was the one who was the originator of the knowledge of the heavenly bodies. And you bringing up the black hole thing, I think is so interesting. I think now it kind of gives people perspective that, you know, scientists haven't discovered this until many, many thousands of years later. And Enoch was the first one to relay that news. So it's funny how like the Catholic Church and many of the Jewish people, probably many of them, but the Catholic Church at least, they kept out the Book of Enoch out of the Bible, saying that it is not a reliable source. But we see that the Book of Enoch is now being attributed to being true because Enoch, I mean, how is it that a false text, a false gospel, or a false book of the Bible can mention something as true as a black hole? It doesn't make sense. And the Ahlul Bayt, they have talked about Enoch being the originator of that knowledge. We can pull up another hadith from the Ahlul Bayt, from the Missed Peace, by Abi Abdullah from the Missed Peace, who said, no one knows it, meaning astrology, no one knows it except the people of a house from the Arabs and the people of the house of a house in India. And some astrologers told me that the ones who know the stars in India are the children of Enoch's vicegerent. Peace be upon them.
So the idea is like then when you're talking about that, then that's so interesting, because if you imagine being at that time, how many people actually claim to like be able to tell you about the stars and calculate for you and all this kinds of stuff. It doesn't make any sense, you know. So now we know, even until today, how many people claim to have this knowledge, you know. There are thousands. If you go to TikTok, if you go to the social media, you'll find them packed with people who can read for you the stars and your tell you what's going on and do all kinds of divinations on you with the stars, using the stars. But the idea in here that Ahlul Bayt alayhi salatu wasalam are saying that this knowledge is sacred, which is, by the way, is very good, because you have lots of atheists who go around, right, disproving these people and their claims, and there are scientists who actually go around disproving the claims of these people when they say, oh, we can tell you, we can do stuff. So what's happened is that now imagine the Ahlul Bayt alayhi salatu wasalam are almost confirming all these research that's been done on the ground by saying, well, there are only two houses, one in India and one in the Arabs, that has the actual true knowledge of these movements of the stars and the true calculations of what's going on. We talked earlier about like how these movements of the stars, if you knew the trajectory of objects, then you will for sure be able to predict the future of what's going on. You know.
Yeah, it's very interesting because it's used for means of war. If you go back and read the sort of history of Israelite prophets and even Imam Ali, I believe. There's a story of Joshua, which is in that verse that you just read out there, that the son returned for Joshua ibn Nun, because I think at that time, if I'm not mistaken, he was at war with the Philistines or some nation, and basically he was sending his troops forward, and some of the troops were dying, but the people that he was battling against, none of them were dying. And it's like he basically turned to God and said, like, why? And he said, because I've taught them the knowledge of the stars. So basically they're sending forward. Basically also to get into that is the knowledge of the stars. If you really know about it, you can determine, as we said yesterday, things that are written in the stars, which is your birthdays and your death dates. So if you're a commander at war, you wouldn't send people that you know are going to die at that time. You would send some people else who are guaranteed not to be there on those days, because you know when they're going to die, right?
Exactly.
So therefore you wouldn't be losing soldiers because it's not written for them to die. So this is what was happening in that time. And when Joshua found out about this, obviously Joshua being the Caliph of God in that time, not the person that had the knowledge. So this is obviously a knowledge, everyone can use it, right? So when Joshua, the Caliph who had that knowledge, and then, God explained this is what's actually happening. God, he allowed Joshua just to change the cosmos, basically, so that the calculations of this woman that he was going to war against was completely off. So therefore then their soldiers started dying, and then obviously Joshua won the battle, and I think we see the same in the time of David as well, right?
Yeah, David had the same occurrence where, like, it turns out the people who he was fighting against also developed knowledge of the stars. They went to war with one another, and they were the ones who also would send out their men in order that they don't die and that they would be victorious in battle, while the people on the side of David's army would die. So then when David asked, he said, "Oh Lord, by what did you teach them?" He said, "By the course of the sun and by the course of the sun, the moon and the stars, and the hours of the night and the day." So then it says here, "Then David called upon God, the exalted, the majestic, and he withheld the sun from them. And so the day increased, and the increase was mixed with night and day. So they did not know the amount of the increase. So their calculations got mixed up." Then Imam Ali alayhi salam said, "From then on, looking into the knowledge of the stars was hated." So it seems like hatred of astrology, hatred of astronomy, or hatred of horoscopes in general, when people are trying to predict a person's future, or like trying to understand what is ahead of them in life, the hatred for that didn't come because it's false. The hatred for that came because it was a knowledge which was lost. People became frustrated that their calculations weren't correct and was no longer accurate. So then no one liked looking into the stars.
Exactly.
So it actually makes sense, and it is fascinating how we actually have these stars talking about the times of death. These stars which calculated for us and tells us how it is that your life is going to be, how and when you're going to be born, and how and when you're going to die. It's interesting.
And I think also it would be, in the eyes of God, or the prophets and messengers would also be hated, because this is a knowledge from God that people are using to kill the people of God. So for sure, it's like hated all around.
This is, it's similar to the knowledge that we have today. Like people use knowledge of physics, knowledge of chemistry, even against the true righteous servants of God. They used blacksmithing before to kill prophets and messengers. They've used all these sciences that exist for everybody's. And if you know the science, you know the science. It works. It's like if it's E equals MC squared, it's E equals MC squared to everybody. To the disbeliever, to the atheist, to the believer. Everybody can benefit from the knowledge. So the idea is that what shows the power with the people who are divinely inspired and chosen, those divinely chosen kings and rulers who God has supported, is their ability to even change that ability for these people, change an entire science, right? Imagine right now you're inside of a simulation video game, right? Suddenly everybody's studying that video game, they're living inside of it for years, they don't even know there's outside worlds, so they're looking into the stars, they're looking into all of it. Imagine a video game that's like an MMORPG or something like that, a massively open world of and so on. So the idea then what you have is that when you're inside of there and you're using the science or the physics of that video game, and you've mastered it, and you can create things inside of it, you can like actually look at the stars and go, okay, right now we're going to go that way. So imagine then at some point somebody who came from an outside, from this world to that video game world, who has actually abilities given by the decoder or by the creator of all of the abilities inside of this game and the game itself, the person who who actually knows how to code the game, and he gave you the ability to actually even move the stars, you know, like then it's very possible, because we know even by scientific advancement and knowing about the physics of the world that this world is almost impossible for it to be the main reality. It's just almost impossible for this world to be the main reality. So what happens is that these sciences that God gives to the scholars, his scholars, which are his priests, his rabbis, his actual true people who are chosen by him, the signs of God that he chooses, Imam Ali, Imam Hassan, Imam Hussein, Joshua son of Nun, Moses, we were talking Jesus, Simon Peter. These people have the special abilities given to them, granted to them by the Holy Spirit or God himself, yes? So the idea then becomes, it's not actually a very far-fetched thought when you actually, even if you were an Elon Musk or you're an atheist or you're whoever you are, because you know this world is like it's the chances of it being the main world is 0.0s. You know, that's where you start. You have to start with 0.0s. You know, so it's very unlikely and it's impossible. In fact, that we know for sure that this is not the main real world. So
and if any sort of physicist or scientist these days, they're saying that there's the different dimensions, the multiverse. Even every pop culture, like I don't know what happened, but almost every movie these days are talking about the multiverse, right? And different realities and different like the butterfly effect. One change here creates a whole other timeline, and this kind of things happening. So it just stands to reason that for sure, there's more than meets the eye. There's more than what is happening in front of us. And as you mentioned earlier, these human goggle lenses, because there is clearly things that, like, even in the light spectrum, there's like ultraviolet light that we can't see with our naked eye, but we all know it's there, right? Infrared, we all know it's there. So there's definitely things going on that we can't see. So we can't rely on our senses, and this is why we have to obviously trust in the words of God. Go ahead.
Can you imagine? This is just like so interesting you said that, because just one frequency and we can see through walls. That's literally the difference. One tiny little speck of frequency and we'll be able to see through walls. Another one we'll see through flesh. Another one you'll see, another frequency and you'll see through God. God knows what else can you see through. What else is there that we do not know that exists that we can see through?
It's kind of like radio frequencies, where the higher that the frequency goes or the lower the frequency goes, you're able to tune into different frequencies, and you're able to tune into different sounds. So as you said, imagine like if it has to do with eyesight, now you're able to see different realms. So like, now imagine
look at the star.
So like when you look up,
you're working with the heat sensor and you're seeing the fire in the human being. Now turn towards the star and look at it, and it's a massive, gigantic fireball that is floating in space, which is yours is very small compared to it. So if that's what I see, then what's the difference between you and it? It's just that it's bigger than you. You see, it has more fire, it has more heat than you. You know, so that just gives you a completely different perspective. But sorry to interrupt you.
No, it's fine. And since we're talking about the knowledge of the stars, right, and we're talking about the knowledge of that we're connected to it. Well, I mean, the ancient people, when it came to the birth of certain figures, they figured out that when a star rose, that was that individual's birth. And that happened, for example, with the birth of Abraham. Many people would describe Jesus as like, oh wow, look at that star up in the sky, and like, everyone knows the story of the Magi's. But when it comes to Abraham, even the Muslims have the story about the birth of Abraham.
We have it in Bihar al-Anwar, exactly as you said there, that a lot of the prophets and messengers, their coming was foretold in the stars, right?
Yes.
And it was their astrologers and their advisors that had this knowledge, and when they saw a new star rise or a star brighten, they knew, this is a sign that a prophet or messenger is coming. And we see that again, like you said, with Abraham or Ibrahim. We see Azar, which is the father of Abraham, actually being an advisor to Nimrod. And in that time, there's a sort of ironic story that basically he advises Nimrod that a successor is going to come and will rule. So Nimrod says, okay, let's put all the women in the city and keep all the men away from them, so that they obviously can't have relations and can't born a child. What happens is they go forward and do that, but I guess they themselves don't apply the rule on themselves. And Azar has the kid. It's Azar, the father of Abraham, who impregnates his wife. And when he realizes that, my wife's pregnant now. Could it be the prophesized one? He gets the astrologers and I guess in that time the sort of midwife type people to do some inspections on his wife to see if she is pregnant, but obviously God in all his majesty like hides the baby, the embryo at like the very back of the body, so it's not detected until it's born. And it was prophesied that obviously this baby would be put in the fire, but what they didn't know is obviously that he would survive the fire. And this is just one example again from it's in the story, it's in the long hadith in Bahar al-Anwar. So as we see, Azar had knowledge of the stars. He was the advisor to Nimrod, and he saw when the star rose that Abraham's going to be born. We saw in the story of Moses the exact same thing, right?
And everyone knows the story of Moses.
Exactly. We see that Pharaoh had a dream, and that there's a big fire from Jerusalem burning Egypt. So then what does he do? He consults his magicians, his priests, his astrologers. Again, his advisors have the knowledge of stars to advise him as what's going to happen. And they confirmed that it was a child from Israel that will be born that will overthrow him, X, Y, and Z, and we obviously all know what happened there. And then
they killed all the newborn babies, and because they knew of the knowledge of the stars, they said, "Hey, a great star has risen." And instead, he was like, "Okay, take all the newborn babies, kill them, throw them in the Nile River."
Exactly, and the same thing happens. The baby gets saved and rises up in the house of Pharaoh, just like Abraham's in the house of around the same time as Nimrod. So again, we're moving on to Jesus, another very famous story. I think pretty much known, I would say, worldwide, with nativity plays and things like that. Pretty much every kid does at school, and like some people even being the Star of Bethlehem. That shines bright like the three Magi's follow, which we'll get into in a second. And obviously the three Magi's come, they follow the star, and they are, funny enough, actually they follow Zoroastrianism. I don't know what you would call it.
Zoroastrianism.
And they had knowledge of the stars, because that is obviously a religion that is from God actually too, which is something that we come back, and they bring gold, frankincense. And then in the time of Muhammad, a Jewish man in Yathrib announces that the Ahmad star has risen, and he declared that it's a sign that a great prophet will arrive, right? So here's just 4 examples in Bahar al-Anwar. Again, a very long hadith that speaks about the advisors of the nations following this knowledge of the stars to then sort of declare that a prophet or messenger, a great man of that time, has arisen, not because they know or they heard about someone's pregnant, they actually saw it in the stars. And it goes back to that thing that, again, it's like written in the stars. You can read it and you will know this knowledge, right?
Yeah, for sure. That's very interesting, because then you're like thinking, when you were mentioning the story of Moses, they did not know which child it was, which shows a limit to their knowledge, right? Like it shows a limit to how much they knew. They knew that somebody is going to be born, and that somebody is a threat to the throne, but then they did not know who.
Exactly.
Which shows also which we'll get to it later. That the prophets and the messengers of God who actually are appointed by God, they had even more knowledge than the knowledge of the pharaohs and the people who were advising pharaohs. So please continue. Yes.
It's amazing points that you bring up, and obviously the most famous one is regarding Jesus. He was the most famous of the prophets in terms of the sign that there's a star in the sky marking his coming. And this is something that the Muslims agree with. This is something that the Jews agree with, the Christians agree with. Although the Jews disbelieved in Jesus, they were aware that there is a celestial planet up there that is signifying the birth of someone. But yeah, let's play the clip in order to demonstrate this point.
After Jesus was born in Bethlehem in Judea, during the time of King Herod, Magi from the east came to Jerusalem and asked, "Where is the one who has been born King of the Jews? We saw his star in the east and have come to worship him." When King Herod heard this, he was disturbed, and all Jerusalem with him. When he had called together all the people's chief priests and teachers of the law, he asked them where the Messiah was to be born. "In Bethlehem in Judea," they replied, "for this is what the prophet has written. But you, Bethlehem, in the land of Judah, are by no means least among the rulers of Judah. For out of you will come a ruler who will shepherd my people, Israel." Then Herod called the Magi secretly and found out from them the exact time the star had appeared. He sent them to Bethlehem and said, "Go and search carefully for the child. As soon as you find him, report to me, so that I too may go and worship him." After they had heard the king, they went on their way, and the star they had seen in the east went ahead of them until it stopped over the place where the child was. When they saw the star, they were overjoyed. On coming to the house, they saw the child with his mother Mary, and they bowed down and worshipped him. Then they opened their treasures and presented him with gifts of gold, frankincense, and myrrh. And having been warned in a dream not to go back to Herod, they returned to their country by another route.
Yes, so these three Magi's, who are Zoroastrians, identified a messenger from God who was coming, or someone from their faith who was coming. So they recognized the same Messiah of the Christians, the same Messiah of the Jews, was their own Messiah. And that's something that we will be revealing at another point in the book, and it is a fascinating revelation that we will see why it is that the Zoroastrians went down to Israel when they were not even Jews themselves. What was it so similar between them and the Jews that they both share the same Messiah? But that's something that we'll get into in another amazing episode. So we see here that Jesus, peace be upon him, was a celestial being, that his birth was indicated by a great star in the east that had appeared. So this star, or this planetary body, descended and became what we know to be Jesus Christ. Is there another example of a planetary body that had come down and manifested as a man or a woman? Yes, actually, we do have another example, and that is concerning a planet that we all know that is in our solar system, called Venus. So let's play the next clip. That
said to the angels, "Come, 2 angels of the angels, so that they may be brought down to the earth, and let us see how they act." They said, "Our Lord, Harut and Marut." So they descended to the earth, and Venus appeared to them as a woman from the best of human beings. She came to them, and they asked to have intercourse with her. But she said, "No, by Allah, not until you speak this word of polytheism." They said, "No, by Allah, we shall never be polytheists." So she left and returned with a boy she was carrying. They asked to have intercourse with her. She said, "No, by Allah, until you kill that boy." So they said, "No, by Allah, we shall never kill him." So she left and returned with a jug of wine. They asked to have intercourse with her, and she said, "No, by Allah, until you drink from this wine." So they drank from it and became drunk and slept with her, and they killed the boy. When they woke up, the woman said to them, "By Allah, there was nothing of the things you denied me, except that you did them when you were drunk." So they were given the choice between the torment of this world or the hereafter, and they chose the torment of this world.
Okay, guys, that is, very interesting. And also, there's another planet too by the name of Jupiter. Let's play the next clip so we can learn about this.
In another tradition in Al-Kafi, Aba Abdullah, peace be upon him, was asked, "What about the stars? Are they true?" He said, "Yes, God sent Jupiter to the earth in the form of a man, who took a non-Arab man and taught him the stars until he thought he had reached completion of knowledge. Then he said to him, 'Look, where is Jupiter?' The non-Arab man said, 'I cannot see him in the stars, and I do not know where he is.' Then he put him aside and took a man from India and taught him until he thought he reached completion of knowledge. He asked him, 'Look at Jupiter. Where is he?' He said, 'According to my calculations, it is you.' He gasped and died, and his family inherited his knowledge. So the knowledge is there."
Wow, subhanAllah, that is quite intense actually. That the brother actually, like this person goes to the Imam and he's like talking to him, he's like, "Where is Jupiter?" He's there, does his calculations, and then he notices he's like, "What? My calculation said it's you.
Yeah.
It's your Jupiter. He said. Then he falls down and dies.
Yeah,
what is going on here? You know, that is some next level knowledge that can affect even life and death on the spot. Like this person actually died from knowing this. How intense.
Yeah, I mean, it's a mystery. You know, no matter how many times I read this narration, I wonder to myself too. I mean, how is it that this man just suddenly passes away?
Yeah, really, some knowledge takes a toll on yourself, I guess. And we don't know exactly what the reason for his death is, but we know for sure that this knowledge is so intense to the point where he's standing in front of the Imam and he's calculating and he's finding out through his calculations that the Imam in front of him is the light of Jupiter, you can say, or that Jupiter that's penetrating through that space and that manifested itself in here on this planet here, taking a body. How intense is that?
Exactly.
If the believers are the stars, and this is the case, which we believe in, then they can actually manifest inside of the human body, and the human body is almost like a mechanism, almost like a vehicle, right? Yeah. It's almost like a car or a phone. Avatar. Exactly. Yeah. Like a car. Right now it's easy to imagine a car, but back then, what would you say, a horse? No? It doesn't, but now we have different things, like we have cars, we have airplanes, we have places, that, like vehicles we can actually ride ourselves. So similarly is the body. It is a beast of some kind that can actually carry the light as soul. For example, a majority of people on the planet Earth believe in a soul and believe that the souls do reside inside the body and they can control the body and all that kind of stuff. So yes, it is very sensible. Then what about a planet who is actually alive and can actually penetrate through to the Earth, which makes quite a bit of sense, because now we can actually see and interact with these higher realm beings, which connects us to the universe itself. Like we cannot see ourselves. Like almost whenever I look at human beings talking about these things, it's almost we disconnected ourselves from nature itself. It's like we are like in a safari, right? We come here to like explore. We put things in zoos. You know, we put things in. Why? Because we almost separate ourselves from this nature that we are in, or God, or the light. Yes.
People they completely lost touch with nature. You know, there's this aspect of philosophy from the Hermetics that they understand, which is as above, so below, so within, so without. But now this idea of the celestial bodies, if it has an effect up there, or if you're up there and you are that body, you are also down here, and whatever effect is taking place up there is also affecting you down here. So Jupiter, we see manifested not just as a planet. Jupiter is not just a planet, but it is also a human being that makes himself known here. Venus is not just a planet, it is also a woman who makes herself known here. And Jesus was one of them. Moses was one of them. Abraham was one of them. So it is undeniable proof here that we find in the texts in Islam, Judaism, and Christianity, where the believers, prophets, messengers, what have you, are indeed the ones who are up there manifesting down here. And so are us. We are also beings who are up there manifesting down here, as above, so below. And it's not just us being here. I mean, we talked about how even the tides are affected by the moon, and we find that the Arabs at the time believed in this. They understood that the planets have an effect. To the point that some people, they came up to Imam Abu Abdullah, Imam al-Sadiq, from him his peace, and they had a discourse where suddenly they started asking the Imam questions. One of the questions that they asked is, so what is the name of the star that if it rises, the camels will rage? Right? The Imam is asking. So it's not the person asking.
They claimed, you know, the person who's in front of the Imam is claiming that he knows the stars. He has the science of the stars. So the Imam is testing him now with...
he's testing him because the Imam knows a knowledge, but other people don't, so he's testing him now. Hey, so which planet is it that if it rises, then the camels are going to rage, are going to become angry? The guy says, I don't know. I don't know. He says, I don't know. So Abu Abdullah said, you have spoken the truth. You don't know. Then he says to him, okay, then what is a star that if it rises, the cows are going to rage? The man, he says, I don't know. Abu Abdullah from MSP says, you have spoken the truth. What is the name of the star that if it rises, the dogs will rage? Guy says, I don't know. Abu Abdullah said, you have spoken the truth when you said, I don't know. Now this is where it gets interesting, because this is something that New Age people really get confused with. They're not sure if this planet is a good omen, is it a bad omen? And some people even call it a boss planet, because it just does what it wills. It does what it wants without your desires and without any consideration for you. It just said, okay, what is this? What is Saturn in your stars? So what is Saturn according to your understanding? So the guy, he says, it is a star of bad omen.
Yeah, as you said.
It is a star of bad omen. This is something that is widely believed by a lot of New Age people. You'll find them on TikTok, you'll find them on YouTube, you'll find them in the streets saying that, yeah, a planet is not really that good of a planet. Many of them have this opinion. Only few really have the opinion that Saturn is a good planet. Abu Abdullah, he said what? He said, do not say this, for it is the star of Amir al-Mu'mineen. It is the star of Ali, the son of Abi Talib. So we see here that without a shadow of a doubt, now that Imam Ali, according to the Ahlul Bayt himself, is one of the planetary bodies, and according to this narration, Imam Ali is Saturn himself.
And it is, in fact, it's so intense, because the star of this star is called the piercing star.
Yes.
Which why it was called that? Because it actually penetrated this. Its existence started, according to the Ahlul Bayt ﷺ, said that it started with this in the seventh layer of heaven, and is penetrated through all the layers of heavens that existed until it manifested itself here in this realm. So it didn't like there is a science behind it. There is something else. Some other stars, for example, they would have manifested in a different layer of existence, which is say the number 6 or number 5 or number 7, or number 7 is that piercing star, which is the star of Imam Ali alayhi salatu wasalam, the prince of the believers. That's why it is the stars of the Hujjah, the stars of the proof of God on earth and the universe.
No, it really is, and one of the biggest proof behind that is the fact that, you know, what do they say? They say that the crown that a person wears on their head is basically just a huge, gigantic ring, like a ring like this, but instead of it being on your finger, you're putting it around your forehead, right? You're putting it around your head. The one planet in the entire solar system that has a ring that basically shows its dominance, that one ring to rule them all, as they would say maybe in the Lord of the Rings, is Saturn. That's why it's a boss planet according to some people. It is a boss planet, it is a planet of planets, because according to the narrations, it is a planet of Amir al-Mu'mineen, or it resembles or reflects or is Amir al-Mu'mineen Ali ibn Abi Talib. And that is, I think, something intense and something that a lot of people caught on to when they're like, hey, if Imam Ali is Saturn, well, it makes sense because Saturn has this ring, and Imam Ali is a leader of the successors.
No, I
was going to say, and also, it's like as you mentioned earlier, in terms of the hermetics, it's that as above, so below. So obviously the ring is made of, you know, dust up, different particles, asteroids and stuff that are circumambulating Saturn, right? And we know Imam Ali was born on Earth in the Kaaba, and what do you see that happens at the Kaaba? It's circumambulation of people, you know, the stardust. So as above, so below, you have like stardust, you know, now that we know that people have made, you know, stars and souls and this kind of stuff, then you see it happening up there, and you see the same thing happening down here. But I think, you know, humanity at large is something that these kind of topics, these kind of knowledges, something that people have lost, especially like 20th century plus, because, you know, back then they were a lot more, I guess, like philosophical. They would believe in that and seen a lot more, whereas now it's like, oh, I don't believe it till I see it. We have technology, we need proof, we need this, that, the other. But as we saw in the time of Jesus with the three magi, King Herod had his advisors, but what does he do in secret? He goes to the magi because he knows that these scholars are more they have more knowledge, and they know, they read the stars better. So they go and he basically commands them to go and basically rat out the Jesus and come back to him, so that he can obviously get rid of Jesus. But what they do, they have a dream, and they believe in their dream that says, you know, don't do this and go forward, and they believe in the knowledge of the stars and stuff. So if you were to say that to someone in this day and age, you know, the stars say this, and then they have a dream, they'd be like, very skeptical. Whereas back then, they take these messages from God a lot more seriously. And I think that's something that, you know, humanity at large, especially in this day and age, have completely forgotten about, and they've lost that sort of connection of faith in God. Like, can you imagine, like now in the story of Abraham, if, you know, he has that dream and he has to go and like sacrifice his son, a random person what they would think. I don't think it's
yeah,
be the same,
sure.
right?
And it's like it's very different for sure. Though you have to look into we have to also look into the families that are in control of this planet today. These rich families who are behind the scenes, who have trillions and trillions of dollars. These guys are the ones who are controlling the scientific field. They're controlling where they put their money into what kind of research, and they themselves use these sciences behind the scene. So it's like
that's the scary thing.
you see what I'm saying? So they're the ones who are actually. I mean, all the science in the front of our own eyes is only what they're allowing to come forward, right? Like they're given the funds for, they're supporting, and so on and so forth. By them, where did they get that from? Well, because they got that from the stars. They calculated, they do things, and they're like, all right, let's go this route now, let's open this route now, and they're controlling this world. Really, you can see how much they control this world.
So they keep the true knowledges for themselves and then distract the people with things like PlayStation and media. And,
we know, bro.
TV.
We know that God knows everything, and we are all believers in God. We all believe in God. There's like the majority of the planet today believes in God of some kind, and we know that actually that God, the true one, eternal God, knows all things. So where is his knowledge? You know, why exactly? Where is his knowledge? Where is his technology? Where is his like ability to give us space travel and do all kinds of knowledge that can regenerate our genetic code? It seems like he's like blocking us from it for a specific reason, and that reason is because people do not follow the true guides of God. You know, we talked about Saturn. They don't follow him right now. That house is empty. We proved the Kaaba, as you said, you know, as above, so below. We proved that that's empty now. That's not actually the true location.
I just want to mention one thing, so we're pretty much out of time now. But if we know that the Imam is going to come forward with these knowledges that you speak about, and will change the face of the earth. But the reason why he hasn't so far is what we saw in this episode when we speak about the knowledge of the stars. Once they get their hands on this true knowledge of God, they're going to use it to what? Fight God, in effect. So that's why it hasn't come forward yet.
For sure.
But for sure, it will come forward, and he has these knowledges.
Yep, and that's something that will happen when the people pledge allegiance to the Imam of their time and give him the space and the time and the decision to transform the world into what God wants it to be. Anyway, thank you very much for watching, and we will see you in the next episode to finalize the chapter of the celestial bodies. Take care. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.